Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Blockchain Won't Save the World. It's another edition of Students React to Blockchain, and this time we've got a wonderful group of students from Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Go Penguins. Enough about my sports preferences. We'll get straight into it. We've got a really talented, really smart group with some quite interesting backdrops to where they're coming from today. And we're going to go through a number of different projects from Cardano to Energy Web to a couple of proprietary ones that you guys might not have heard of yet. So I'm really excited to jump into it. Abhishek's going to kick us off. Abhishek, I believe you're going to take us through Cardano. Let's open up the show.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much for introducing me, and I'm very excited to be here on the show. So I want to start off just a little bit about my background. I am a junior studying electrical and computer engineering here at Carnegie Mellon University, and I've been interested in blockchain and crypto for a while now. Actually, it started off when I was in high school, and I organized a hackathon with the lead sponsor being a cryptocurrency company. So that really got me into the space, and since then, I've just been learning a lot more about it. So today I want to talk a little bit about Cardano. For those of you, it's a very popular cryptocurrency these days, so it's should be pretty familiar. But for those of you who don't know, it's a smart contracts platform with the cryptocurrency token ADA, if you want to look it up. It was pioneered in 2017 by Charles Hoskinson. He was a co-founder of Ethereum, actually. And they were one of the earliest adopters of proof of stake, which is a consensus protocol different than proof of work, which Bitcoin and Ethereum currently use. And it's designed to be a lot faster as well as a lot more eco-friendly. And Cardano in particular, it runs on an ideology of extreme thoroughness whenever they put out anything. So a lot of the other companies that are out there, they'll have like a lot of a fail fast approach, right? They try things out and they keep on improving bit by bit. Cardano's idea is that they want to do all of the relevant research first, make sure that it's vetted properly, look through, and then push out things slowly and steadily. And that can be seen by the fact that they actually submit a bunch of academic peer-reviewed papers for all of the work that they do, and they have over 90 peer-reviewed papers currently. So that's a little bit about Cardano in general. I want to just explain what its purpose is and how it compares to its main competitor, Ethereum. So Cardano is built as a smart contracts platform. The biggest smart contracts platform is obviously Ethereum at the moment. But Cardano is built upon the idea that just because Ethereum came first and it's more adopted right now, doesn't mean that it's doing everything in the optimal way. And there's got to be some improvements that need to be made that will help take this idea of smart contracts to the next level entirely so that it can be feasible to use in day-to-day life without being extremely costly or bad for the environment. So it started off with this core idea or this core technology that it uses, which is the Auroboris Protocol. And it's a provably secure and mathematically verifiable consensus mechanism that drives its proof of stake. And compared to Ethereum, Ethereum actually is currently using proof of work, which involves lots of different calculations in order to solve a puzzle and create new blocks. And that's how Ethereum is created, which is extremely bad for the environment. And they're currently also working on moving to proof of stake, but Cardano is ahead of the game and they have the papers to back it up as well. Another key difference is the fact that Ethereum actually has an infinite supply. So as blocks are mined in Ethereum, more and more Ethereum can be made, but Cardano has a fixed supply at 45 billion. So currently more Cardano is being created, but eventually when it reaches its cap of 45 billion, no more Cardano can be made and it's kind of set. So one thing when you're looking at it from a value perspective, the fact that the supply is limited means that as demand grows, you know that the value of the coin itself will also grow. So if you're interested in the space as more of an investor or someone who's looking to park their coins or park their money, that's something very important to look into. The other thing is that the market cap itself, since Ethereum was adopted a lot earlier, it's actually a lot smaller for Cardano than it is for Ethereum, which means that now is a great time to get involved. Actually, recently, because Cardano and Ethereum are kind of rivals, Cardano has its price has kind of stayed stagnant while Ethereum has gone up, which means it's a great time that you could buy, especially if you think that the smart contract space as a whole is going to go up in general. One of the things that really speaks to me in terms of Cardano is the transaction fee structure. So with Ethereum, you find that a lot of times people are unable to transact quickly or effectively because the fees have just gone through the roof. And Cardano aims to really have a more simplified structure for fees, and their fees currently are much lower than those on the Ethereum network, which proves as like, I guess, fuel for this ecosystem to take off. They basically have two parameters, A and B, and the third parameter is the size of your transaction in bytes. And these three parameters basically govern how much you're going to be paying on Cardano to get any sort of transaction done. So overall, pretty simple, not too complex. There's no crazy gas or anything like that, just straightforward formula, and it can make it a lot easier to guess how much you're going to have to pay in order to get things done. The other big thing I want to touch upon is that Cardano is a lot newer than Ethereum, and because of that, it's still in the works. So they actually launched one of their biggest updates recently in the Alonzo fork of Cardano, and that let their smart contracts actually go live. So before that, couldn't actually use the smart contracts, one of the defining features of Cardano. But very recently, these smart contracts have gone live, and you can actually program and build contracts and transactions on the Cardano network, which is like basically what it's meant for. And they have a little bit of a different structure in terms of their actual smart contracts. They've split them up into two categories. One that is focused on transacting money, and then the other that's more on just building contracts for like organizations or anything in general. So you can use different languages that are more specified to these specific areas, and it allows you to have a little bit more flexibility and specificity in terms of the application that you have for your contract. And then the final thing that I really want to talk about here is the community. So there are three main organizations that run the Cardano community. The first is the Cardano Foundation. The second is Emergo. And then the third is Iohk. So the first the Cardano Foundation, they are the legal custodian of the actual protocol that governs Cardano. And they're basically more focused on the external appearance and branding of Cardano as a whole. They're involved in driving adoption, partnering with different community members, other blockchain projects in order to get them onto the Cardano platform. And they've done a lot for the community as a whole. And that can really be seen in the meteoric rise of the Cardano price over the past year. The second is Emergo, which is more of the for-profit branch of Cardano. So they're working with different companies and finding ways that they can create businesses on the Cardano network. They have branches in Singapore, Japan, the US, India, Indonesia. They help companies with R&D, and they like incubate different commercial opportunities in the Cardano network. So for people who are trying to build their businesses, there's like a way to get involved on that end as well. And then finally, we have Iohk. It's Input Output of Hong Kong. And this was a organization that was also started by Charles Hoskinson, the founder of Cardano. And this is basically like the tech and engineering side of the company. They help build cryptocurrencies for academic institutions, for government entities, for like different enterprises as well. And they basically like do the heavy lifting on the tech side. So these three components and the community as a whole of the people who are like involved is just really, really strong, and it's growing rapidly every single day. So like that has got me invested into Cardano and excited for what's next. So overall, I think it's a great time to get involved in Cardano and really just get involved early.
Nice. Thanks for that, Abhishek. And clearly a lot to cover within that, right? So it's gone from being a cryptocurrency platform defending itself based on proof of stake, peer reviewed. And I know we're among academics here, so that's an interesting approach to say that we're not just going to be open source, we're also going to deliberately seek out peer review for the content we create papers. I've had the privilege of spending a short amount of time with Charles Hoskinson. He's absolute gent, and it's very interesting that there's a lot of quality and integrity behind what he tries to do. Full disclosure, anyone listening in, this is not investment advice. This is not which token's next going to the moon, but there is an investment component to all of these. Anywhere there's a token, somebody's going to look at, how do we think about the value of that? Is it inflationary, deflationary, limited supply or unlimited supply? How does it compare? I enjoyed the contrast with Ethereum there, Abhishek. It was a nice trade-off. Is there anything that concerns you around Cardano going forward? Anything else that you'd like to know more about that you haven't found out yet, or that you're curious to know more on?
So personally, I want to see how their smart contracts are fairly new, right? And I want to see how that evolves. And my biggest concern would be adoption, right? So we do have these parts of the community who are pushing for adoption in Cardano, but I think the biggest challenge would be to get people who are using Ethereum smart contracts to give Cardano smart contracts a try. And I want to see how they end up doing that.
I had a question about that. So how do you, as a developer, right? All of the background information is great. As a developer, how do you get started with Cardano? If you've done like smart contract development, like Ethereum or Solana.
I can actually, so I'll tell you where I started looking. Cardano itself has a site for it, developers.cardano.org, and they have the docs for their smart contracts there. So you can start reading into that and start getting like the base knowledge of how to get involved with smart contracts on Cardano. It's not exactly like Solidity like you would find on Ethereum, but definitely the details are out there.
As a really good consideration actually is, as you're looking across a number of these blockchains, there's different considerations for, as a developer, how close are the languages to what I've been trained in, whether that's Java, whether that's C, Rust, Solidity, whether it's a proprietary language that's been created specifically for that blockchain, Golang. There's lots and lots of different languages that different blockchains and smart contracts are being programmed in. And the user experience of that is complicated. There are some layer ones that are also going into allowing you to write on multiple different types of programming language to be able to initiate smart contracts or to build dApps, which I think ultimately has got to be the direction of travel, is to be the more languages that you can accept to enable you to interact with those platforms and protocols, the more accessible it's going to be. So thank you for that, Abhishek. I'm going to jump straight over to Gokul. And Gokul, I believe you're going to tee us up with Energy Web. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So
right,
I'll just start with a brief background of myself. So I'm not a programmer. So I'm actually an energy engineer. I'm doing my master's in energy science, technology, and policy. And what got me interested is the impact this could have on energy as well. So I'll just start right off with our planet is facing one of the greatest threats of its time. And climate change is actually a reality right now and something that we see in news every day. So I would like to explore a tool which would actually help us to traverse this adverse scenario. So low carbon electricity seems like the future, and that is something going on right now. And this is a trend that we can see in the electricity grids, because I would like to give you a brief background about the grids before I talk about Energy Web. So we are moving on to a more distributed system right now. So we have consumers coming in as prosumers who are generating electricity and selling it to the grid as well. So that's where a token or a tool like Energy Web would come into play. So I would like to say that the utilities and the energy industry are really hard customers, so they don't like to change so much. So it's really hard to make them adopt a tool or blockchain as such in general. So what I see in Energy Web is that there are a lot of team members who are really good with energy, and there are engineers who have worked in the energy sector as well. So that's how they're getting more adopted in the industry, because they're having these connections. And it's really hard to convince a major like Shell to adopt blockchain, because they won't actually do it unless there's like proper backing and like proper professionals behind it. So coming on to the technology, let me just pull up a few numbers here. So what I found is that around there'll be around 3.5 billion internet connected DERs by 2030. So this is actually a really big market. And I see that there is around $830 billion investment in DERs and around 7 trillion on electric vehicles. So what this would mean is that the consumers would actually be the biggest investors in the energy sector rather than just the utilities. And that's why we need to be really careful about like what tools we use for this transformation. So Energy Web basically is a proof of authority based network, and they have like multiple tools. To like mention a few, they have Energy Web chain, which is the basic building block of this of Energy Web. And they also do have like other tools which help the customers and the utilities integrate. So basically how it works. So basically the idea is to create like digital identities for the consumers, because most of the times the utilities don't know like what exists at the customer end. So they actually need to get an idea, and this can be done only from the consumer side. So basically Energy Web would be using some applications so that consumers like us can actually integrate more onto the grid by sending data about like what systems exist at our side, like solar, wind, or like any energy storage system that we have. And this would actually help us build a good energy market. That's what I would think. So the token that Energy Web uses is the EWT, which is the Energy Web token. And basically the gas fee is paid using Ethereum, ETH. And also Energy Web is right now listed in a few exchanges. Even though I think it doesn't have like a SEC authorization. It is actually a Swiss company. It has the Swiss regulatory authorization, and also it's listed on a few exchanges which are accessible from the US as well. So you can actually buy Energy Web tokens. So I feel that it has a really bright future because of the integration with the utilities, and the utilities coming in as the like the authorities that are in the permission part of the network. And I feel that this is a good way to transition onto the future of zero carbon. And yeah.
Love that from you, Gokul. Thank you very much indeed. And again, you can definitely see the energy transition being a really important point, both in terms of how are we sourcing renewable energy, how are we proving that we've generated renewable energy, how do we interact with not just prosumers, but also sources, storage of energy, whether that's in electric vehicles, whether that's in batteries, and how do we, create that virtual power plant as well. And the tokenization and the reconciliation between all of those parties is super important. And being able to have infrastructure that's not owned by one particular energy company versus another, something that's interoperable, is super important. So some really good points raised there. I am going to give a shout out to Shell and blockchain, because Sabine Brink, who's been on the show on a previous episode of the Netherlands episode, Shell does have their own blockchain team. They've got some super talented individuals. So as an energy company, definitely they've got some blockchain chops. So don't worry about that. But more broadly, the point you were making is that actually the utilities are not typically known to be early adopters and highly innovative when it comes to technology, consumer-facing technology, or B2B. So I think a point well made. Guys, anything else? Anyone else want to come in on this one? Any other thoughts around the energy transition, around Energy Web itself? Otherwise, I'm going to run straight into the next presentation. And next we have Navid. Navid, you're going to talk to us about Chainalysis.
Yeah, hi. So I'm a Master of Science in Information Technology. I'm focused in privacy engineering. So it's only natural that I chose Chainalysis, which is a company which is focused towards blockchain surveillance in addition to the other products. So Chainalysis is a platform that helps governments, financial institutions, and other groups lessen the threat of cyber crimes in their dealings with cryptocurrencies. The co-founder and CEO of Chainalysis is actually Michael Groninger, who co-founded the cryptocurrency exchange Kraken before leaving in 2015 to launch Chainalysis. The other co-founder is Jonathan Levin, who has an economics degree from Oxford and has previously published a lot of research on virtual currencies. So Chainalysis provides data, software, services, and research to government agencies, financial institutions, insurance companies, and cybersecurity companies in over 60 countries. Their platform basically focuses on investigation, compliance, and risk management. So it basically helps grow consumer access to cryptocurrency safely. And the customers that they service include Bitstamp, Gemini, Corbett, Europol, etc. So focusing on why government agencies are so heavily invested in what Chainalysis does, because it helps you visualize the flow of funds as to where your cryptocurrency funds are going, helps you follow the money as well, and share your findings in basically various formats. And it also has this curated open source intelligence, which helps you scrape information from clear and darknet forums, which helps governments crack down on ransomware, which is a great thing, seeing as how ransomware is the new topic on the horizon right now. Why do financial institutions basically want to use Chainalysis is because it helps compliance decisions with how your industry is. So it helps understand your various on-chain exposure of major exchanges with, I guess, detailed profiles and a complete risk evaluation of what they're actually getting into. So it helps financial institutions mitigate potential risks and also embrace the economy that is actually built on blockchains. In addition to that, it can help financial institutions get new clients by saying, look here, we're using the services of Chainalysis, which is a blockchain surveillance company, which makes sure that what we are doing is comprehensive and the due diligence is done on the back end. And because of this, it also gives these financial institutions the tools they need to fight back in case of, I guess, account takeovers, ransomware, and other threats which impact them and their customers. Like I said before, there are a lot of cryptocurrencies businesses also like Gemini, which use Chainalysis. So this is basically because it helps them comply with cryptocurrency regulations. So the space of cryptocurrency regulations is a really volatile one with changes in every country coming out almost every single week. So it helps them keep up to date with the various cryptocurrency regulations, and also helps them have an account management team in place, which helps them basically tailor how their cryptocurrency exchanges work in terms of what the customer's needs are. And in addition to that, obviously, I guess, for all government institutions, financial institutions, and cryptocurrency businesses, just having access to the people who work at Chainalysis and the experts in compliance and investigations helps them build a more robust program. So they offer a number of proprietary products, and I'm just going to delve on a couple of them because they have actually quite a few. So one of them is Chainalysis KYT, which is Chainalysis Know Your Transaction, which basically combines blockchain intelligence and uses this real-time API to reduce your manual workflows and seeing how what exact transactions are going on the blockchain, and helps cryptocurrency businesses comply with global and local regulations as well. So this Know Your Transaction helps identify high risk activity by detecting maybe addresses which are already sanctioned before, checking what are anomalous transactions, darknet markets. So it helps continuous transaction for all types of cryptocurrency assets, and these alerts that they'll give out are also in real time. So basically, it helps I guess, organizations know and prevent withdrawals from blacklisted address, freeze deposits from various hacks, scams, and ransomwares, and also basically configures alerts based on the particular organization's anti-money laundering policies. So because of this, it has like a very integrated use case, which can be used for multiple multiple verticals, and also helps, I guess, insurance companies keep a full audit trail of exactly what went down in a particular scenario. So this gives investigators and also I guess governments in-depth analysis and in-depth investigations into how basically the flow of funds is going from maybe suspicious people or suspicious activities to real world entities. Another product that they have is Chainalysis Reactor. So Reactor is this investigation software that connects cryptocurrency transactions to real world entities. So this enables you to basically combat criminal activity on the blockchain. So this tool basically, it's phenomenal what this tool does. So it helps search based on any identifier that is out there. So you can enter any cryptocurrency address, learn which entity controls the wallet, discover related addresses, and automatically scans thousands of, social media forums and darknet sites associated with this address for open source intelligence. It at the same time understands real world activity. So it helps you basically see what the scenario is and monitor how it is going on in real time, and also basically how future transactions and how anomalous these future transactions are, to help you look at an automated pathfinding tool in the past to help start an investigation. It basically also, I guess, it helps governments follow the money, in the sense you can check through unlimited number of hops through one particular address, see their transactions, see their social media profiles that are linked to that, and again helps build a case in a very build a case which can lead to proper I guess in a court of law basically. So the other products include Chainalysis Cryptos, Chainalysis Market Intel. So Chainalysis Cryptos is again another tool which I guess helps vet the cryptocurrency landscape and helps people find new business or new opportunities to invest into. So I actually had like a doubt in this, like how does exactly Chainalysis Cryptos vet new opportunities in like such a reaction-driven market, in the sense that you have an obscure cryptocurrency gain by over 500% in a month based on actual no use case in the real world. So for example, there's this cat meme coin called Pussy.Financial, which wants to rival the likes of Shiba and Doge. And this has just gained 634% in the last 30 days, based solely on the premise that it's the first cat meme coin. So it would be great to see like how it actually vets these new opportunities. So the business model of Chainalysis is made in such a way that it helps them shields them from basically high fluctuations in prices in cryptocurrency. They are a B2B SaaS company which ensures stable revenue growth, which is also not connected to the market. So the money that Chainalysis has got comes from various federal agencies like the Federal Bureau of Investigation, drug enforcement agencies, ICE, NSTSA, FinCEN, the Secret Service, and most of these have signed six-figure deals with Chainalysis, with obviously some agencies spending more than the others. So for example, the TSA spent $40,000 in just one contract in 2018, while the IRS is obviously Chainalysis' biggest federal partner, which spent $4.1 million over 5 years. And just 3.6 million of it has come from 2018 onwards. So it's really interesting to see what product comes out next from Chainalysis. I actually had a couple of questions, which would be great if they could clarify also. So basically, Chainalysis, the Chainalysis Reactor and KYT helps agencies track ransomware payments, or how they have them identify high-risk activity, like I explained earlier. So it'd be great if Chainalysis could come out with, like, I guess, a blog or like a real-world instance in where they actually managed to track this. Obviously, after the non-disclosure agreements have finished their periods. Also, so some say that Chainalysis, there's a lot of discussion online on forums like Reddit, etc., where they say that Chainalysis is defeating the purpose of basically defeating the purpose of a system that was designed for anonymity and pseudonymity through blockchain surveillance, which also reduces the interest and the market that is there for cryptocurrencies. So this could, I guess, push people into other cryptocurrency platforms where Chainalysis doesn't have that much of a surveillance and is not able to track that much. So it would be great to see what their viewpoint is on this discussion. And there's been a lot of talk also that Chainalysis uses dusting attack. So dusting attacks are basically, I guess, attacks on cryptocurrency wallets that you send tiny amounts of cryptocurrency to that wallet, usually with the goal of having like a de-anonymization attack. So because Chainalysis is like a team government because of all the funding they've got, it would be great to see whether do they actually use this in practice, or because there's been no admittance on their part for any of this. So
fascinating stuff, Navid. Absolutely brilliant overview. Some really, really fascinating stuff, and a really interesting moral dilemma there, because what we have got with open source and with blockchains and with the sort of the transparency they provide is that everything is available to everybody. So Chainalysis in basic form is they're a big data provider or a big data consumer for blockchain and crypto, and you can do with that information as you will. They've probably got, you know, analytical horsepower well beyond most of us in terms of what we might do in our own research and our own laptops. And as you describe, it can be used for tracking down, you know, or helping people to get back, you know, money, ransoms, bribes, you know, threat money, blackmail money that's gone to a cryptocurrency wallet. And for people who've been harmed and people who've been wronged in those situations, you would argue that's a good thing. At the same time, yes, it is surveillance. Yeah. You know, if you've got nothing to hide, then theoretically you should have nothing to worry about. But again, you know, the spirit of how that's played out, obviously the first people to jump on that will be banks and the feds, because that's their job, right? Understandably, you and I aren't going to spend $1 million on Chainalysis to find the next pussy.financial. I mean, maybe you are. And again, full reminder, this is not investment advice. Yeah. As funny as the first cat meme token is, you know, again, you can use the same information to look at the number of different wallets that are investing in a particular crypto to see whether you can see patterns in pool buying or pool pumping and dumping, or whether it is truly random and there is actually an open market of people interested in a particular project. I think that's super interesting. Any other guys you want to come in on this one? Any other thoughts on Chainalysis? Anybody want to stand up for one side or the other?
It's not exactly to stand up, but I was reading a paper about like tumbler systems which help in the anonymity of transactions. So how would that come into play when using a tool like Chainalysis? Like, would that be like really hard for them to track?
So I mean, there are some discussions which say like there are mixers which are basically what prevent Chainalysis from doing their task efficiently. But they say like at the end of it, how many times can you basically mix your coins? For every transaction do you go through the trouble of actually, you know, going through mixers, going through, I guess you're referring to the Tumblebits paper in this sense. So so it heavily depends on, I guess for individuals, you're not going to go through mixers for every transaction that you have. Maybe if you're like a criminal, if it's like a criminal activity, then you probably have to use multiple mixers, not just one, to get your, I guess, your cryptocurrency out of there safely. But I'm sure there must be somewhere in which Chainalysis will come out with like a way to even detect or track that. And obviously, because this is proprietary data, there's not going to be much of knowledge out there, which is why I actually wanted them to come out with like a real world instance, you know, of how they've actually helped. But hopefully it comes out soon.
It'll all come out eventually. It'll all come out, but unfortunately, that's still part of their secret sauce, or part of their competitive advantage, right? So you've got to be a little bit careful as to what you give out to the public versus what you give out in the confidence of business discussions with the FBI, for example. Tejas, you've been waiting very patiently, and you're going to give us a project I've never heard of before. You're going to talk to us about Zuz Labs.
Yeah, so just a little bit about me. My name is Tejas. I'm an information systems major here at CMU, and I'm actually part of the Zuz Labs team. So essentially, like these days, ledger-based technologies and smart contracts are really bring about a very new era in terms of peer-to-peer lending and payment platforms. And today I'll be sharing some thoughts on Zuz Labs. It's a company I've been working on for a while, founded by a professor at CMU called Professor Seth Goldstein. And essentially, it is a payment and lending platform where small businesses can raise capital based on the trust that they have developed within their local communities. So how does this work, right? So let's say you own a small cafe within a commerce neighborhood in your typical like small or mid-sized city, right? And as a small business, typically you find it very hard to secure loans. Mainstream banks typically don't give out very favorable loans to small businesses, and especially not with very good interest rates. So at Zuz Labs, what our platform allows you to do is, issue Zuz, which are kind of like digital gift cards to your customers in exchange for capital. And these gift cards are essentially like claims to future purchases that you sell to your customers. And they are backed by your reputation within the community and within the reputation that you have with your customers. And so it depends on whether or not they trust your ability to honor the value of the gift cards that you issue. And it's not just that, right? So once you issue these gift cards and these customers have these gift cards that they can spend at your store, what brings it one step further is the idea of these gift cards being able to be accepted by other stores within your neighborhood if they trust in your ability to back the value of these gift cards. So in effect, this would allow for like a sort of community currency, right? With the trading of the debt that you issue between people, customers, businesses together, a sort of creation of a community currency and of sorts. And all of this is backed just by the reputation of your business. So how does this help? With this, right? As transactions take place, you develop more and more transaction history on a public ledger. And with this public ledger, you can kind of create evidence of creditworthiness and evidence of ability to raise capital and pay back loans on this public ledger, which can allow businesses to use these data to get larger actual loans from mainstream banks. So overall, that's the main premise of how Zuz Lab works and what it does, right? But with this in mind, and with such technologies coming up, I think there are a few key implications that are very interesting to be discussed. So the first one I'll talk about is this, right? So with trust and reputation-based currencies, right, and trust and reputation-based smart contracts, one interesting situation is, will we ever come across a point of time where like trust becomes like a commodity in the space, in smart contracts, in areas like this? And if so, how would we tackle this? People might want to purchase accounts, purchase different accounts and such, just because of the trust that they can access with this account. And this can have a lot of implications. And in the first place, one thing to consider would be, is this even a bad thing in the first place? Is being able to, because what larger businesses that purchase or acquire companies because of the reputation that they have within their communities is something that's been going on for ages, right? That's how you enter a new market. That's a lot of companies' go-to-market strategy. So would that be a bad thing or would that be a good thing? And so how do we tackle this issue too? So if we feel like, the idea of purchasing trust and using accounts in order to access capital is bad, what are ways that we can tackle this? Is this an issue that's more regulatory based? Should it be built into the protocols of smart contracts? And how can we go about tackling this issue? So I feel that this is an area that needs that should be having a lot of research coming up in the future, and it's an area with a lot of potential to learn how these trust-based cryptocurrencies and coins can work as we go forward.
Big fan of that, Tejas. Great introduction. And what I think you've done there is you've actually touched on a few different analogous examples of the on one of the previous episodes of the show, we had a number of speakers from Switzerland, and they talked about the Veer Bank, and Veer created its own digital community token back in the early 1900s in Switzerland. And it was obviously not based on a blockchain. It obviously wasn't based on computers and cryptography, but it was the concept similar to a credit union, essentially, of because you're part of the union, because you're part of the community, you're then as a result more favorably looked at because the people in the community know you better. What we're then building on is how do we digitize, how do we create greater transparency in the information to then be able to create a trust score in the same way you have a credit rating. The guys down at Chainalysis, or you could get Navid in, whoever you wanted to be able to do the interpretation of your financials, the number of people buying from you, the number of people buying and then as a result redeeming the particular tokens from you, are all things that you can put an objective analysis against. So you're essentially creating new ways and protocols, standards, if you will, for doing that in a business way. I mean, companies publish their accounts. People go to ratings agencies for hygiene, right? Same thing could be for financial probity. The final point around buying businesses based on trust is kind of an interesting one. Trust is absolutely something that you can quantify depending on what's the lens of the trust, right? We hire or we get endorsements from celebrities. We spend money to get celebrities to endorse our products because there is an inferred trust in that person speaking on behalf of that brand. Right? Mm-hmm. In the Web3 that we're talking about, there is a borderless, global, transparent, digital, regular way of managing and maintaining that. So I think you're onto a good thing.
Definitely, and this becomes even more important when we think about the idea of using trust as a way to almost immediately raise capital, right? Almost immediately access capital, issue gift cards, issue loans. And if trust can be purchased for such a thing, what kind of implications would that have? So also another interesting point you brought up was the idea of these community currencies back in Switzerland. And I think one very interesting thing that comes to my mind that I find really interesting at this point would be the idea of when creating such community currencies, right? Especially if these currencies can be tradable and things like that. Would we ever have a situation where neighborhoods or communities can become securitized? So, if for example, we know that the community currency in a certain area seems to be going very well. There's a lot of transaction history. There's a lot of transactions taking place. The value of the currencies are going up. Does that mean that is there a potential for this neighborhood to become a security in and of itself?
Love that.
And yeah, I feel like there are both pros and cons to such a thing. The first one is that, capital that's typically in today's world concentrated in like financial hubs, in like core downtown neighborhoods and things like that, can potentially get spread over to more regional hubs where there is, we see transactions, we see growing community currencies and things like that. And this will be very beneficial, right? Like we don't have a very polarized divide in where capital inflow into an economy, into a state comes in. And I think those are going to be really beneficial in terms of just uplifting like all kinds of neighborhoods within a state or within a country. But that being said, the other side of the coin could also take place, where communities that are seen as having like poorer securities or securities that may not perform as well might see further outflows of capital from their communities into communities that are doing well, that have that show on public ledgers that they're improving and things like that. So yeah, there's so many implications, the social implications, economic and potentially even political implications that can come from that. And so yeah, I see a very, very wide scope of research that can be conducted in this area.
Love that. I mean, there's definitely going to be legal considerations around what represents a security. How does that security fluctuate if there's an individual bad actor within that particular community? Does the whole community suffer? But I mean, if you can fractionalize a security, sure, you can aggregate one too. And a lot of the if anyone who's watched The Big Short, a lot of the problem there was that you were grouping up particular bundles of loans and you were selling them as a security. So, all we're saying here is let's do that in a more community-focused, democratic kind of way. And the access to capital is driven purely from who in the community wants to fund it, how much transparency, how much visibility is there on metrics that matter. And providing that's transparent and easy to get into. You could have investors from Korea, from Australia, from Brazil, from anywhere, right? You've got a completely open market, which I think is super interesting. Guys, anyone else want to come in on this one before we go over to the next speaker?
Yeah, I had a question for Tejas. So pardon me if you've already answered this, but you were mentioning the idea sort of started out as, let's say a bank, a small business owner comes to a bank, right, to ask for a loan. And because the person doesn't have any trust or like financial security behind it, they don't get the loan. So I was wondering how in the platform that you're mentioning, where you have trust based on communities and reputation that you stake for it, if a new player enters the system, right, how do you declare trust or reputation for a new player? Because I would assume it begins with zero, right?
Definitely. So the idea here is kind of like it would start with having a business be in a community for a while. So
okay,
if a new player were to come in, I think there are a couple of different ways in which they could gain trust. One could be through being endorsed by other players within the system that already have trust, and other players that are willing to back the currency that they're issuing. So that would be the main way if you're a brand new player entering the system. And I mean, there are other options too. Like instead of issuing trust as individual businesses, issuing gift cards as individual businesses, what if people come together as pooled businesses, a group of businesses together, and issue a gift card? You know, maybe a street of businesses and things like that. And that is probably the go-to strategy for newer businesses without any reputation at all entering the market. But yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah. So yeah, basically the community giving trust to a business, staking in it essentially.
Right. So initially, once the initial trust has been developed or has been taken on as a proxy from another business, for example, public ledger data, as transactions take place, and as the business honors its gift card, the Zuz that it issues, that's when trust is developed and more creditworthiness is developed, on and on. And so that's how it will progress from that point onwards.
Nice one, guys. Good questions.
Really
and
awesome.
Also, shout to Professor Seth for bringing us all together. He's the original focal point for bringing the Carnegie Mellon blockchain family together. So shout out to Professor Seth, and I'm really excited to see the good work that you're continuing to do in the community and with this particular project. Lev, over to you. Thanks for waiting patiently. You want to talk to us about Mina?
Sure. So hi, my name is Lev. I'm an undergrad at Carnegie Mellon studying computer engineering and CS. And Mina is maybe like an antithesis in a way to Chainalysis, as far as we know, with like current math and cryptography. And what it is, it's layer one, like a new blockchain. So like Ethereum, Bitcoin, Cardano, they're all layer ones, but it's based off of a different technology in how it checks the state of the whole blockchain. So if anybody's familiar with like UTXO, it's like how Bitcoin works, where it checks that like successive transactions are applied correctly. What Mina relies on is a technology called the ZK snark. And ZK snarks are something coming out of the cryptography world, which allow you to verify that some computation was done without revealing entirely what the computation was done on. So like you can imagine two people, Alice and Bob, and it can verify that Bob actually has $100 that he can give to Alice without revealing that Bob is giving $100 to Alice. And basically working from there, what Mina does is that it has this state of the blockchain, which basically you can think of it like, oh, Bob has $100, Alice has $200, and that entire state is bundled up into one proof. So one thing proving that Alice has 200 and Bob has 100 without revealing that Alice actually has 200 and Bob actually has 100. And what that actually allows for is when you update the blockchain, so let's say Alice wants to send some money to Bob, Alice can now send money to Bob without revealing that she is sending money to Bob to anybody. And then Bob would receive money, his balance would increase, but Bob would also not know how much money Alice actually has left over after. So it's entirely privacy focused, and some other like things that fall out of it is that the blockchain state doesn't increase in size. So like the Bitcoin blockchain, like the ledger itself, like if you want to download the whole thing, it grows every single day. It's like gigabytes and gigabytes upon gigabytes now. But because you're just working with some fancy cryptography, you can keep the blockchain size down to like 22 kilobytes. So this whole idea of the trilemma in blockchain, which is often talked about, it's almost a meme at this point. And the idea is basically that you have to trade off either security, decentralization, or throughput, like how fast the chain can run, for the common blockchain model. So like Bitcoin is very decentralized and very secure, but it's not able to process a lot of transactions. You can have other blockchains that are not very decentralized, but can process a lot of transactions. The whole idea here is that you can actually kind of overcome the trilemma because you can process a lot of transactions at once, and you don't have to have a lot of power to process it. So it can be very decentralized just because your whole state is very small. And it's very secure because mathematically, you're not revealing anything to anyone. And on top of that, there's some very cool applications that fall out of this. What you can do is you can verify website data on chain, meaning that like, let's say you want to prove that like at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday Google, like the New York Times had a certain article up there, you can do that using Mina by basically just submitting what the page looked like on Tuesday. And yeah, there's a lot of other applications that fall out of this. You can verify credit scores without revealing you can verify that your credit score meets a certain potential without actually revealing anything about your credit score. And yeah, and really it can change the way we interact with blockchain just because everything becomes private, but it also allows you to do more things. That being said, sorry.
I was about to say, I love the way you describe it as sort of the antithesis of the kind of open public ledger. Not to say that you can't use zero knowledge technology in and around public ledgers at the same time, but essentially you're creating a very interesting black box. And as long as everybody trusts in how the black box works, and this is part of the challenge, I think, in adoption is, as long as everybody is able to audit the smart contract or the cryptography or the approach or the workflow that you create using that zero knowledge, as long as everybody agrees that that's incorruptible and that we all agree to the rules of the black box, we can all continue to use the black box. Like being able to validate that I'm of a certain age or able to enter into a bar, a restaurant, nightclub, whatever it is, without anybody knowing my address, without physically showing my digital ID or my physical ID, in front of anybody. The same thing works with health credentials. Some of that is not always based on zero knowledge technology, but trying to obfuscate information that other people don't need to see, which I think there is going to be increasing demand for.
Yeah, no, it's incredible, and it can actually integrate really well with current public ledgers like Ethereum, because you can basically use Mina to submit proofs of what a certain website looked like at a certain time, and then that can be used on Ethereum to process so you can submit a proof that Bitcoin's price $500 at a certain time, and then Ethereum blockchain can use that to process some sort of betting for a betting website or something like that.
Nice. Yeah, guys, any other thoughts? Yeah, come on in, Navid.
So I think a couple of months back only, I think Polygon, which is a scaling solution for Ethereum, also just integrated Mina into it. So because of this integration, basically, obviously it helps them become more privacy preserving, but also because it's just, I think, like you said, 22 KB is their full, blockchain size, and because this is fixed, I think it helps more average. It helps the average user just run a full node just from your smartphone. So in terms of scalability, it is surely the future, and also because of the privacy preserving nature that it has. So yeah, I'm really excited to see what comes out of Mina as well.
Nice one, guys. Nice one. Mehul, you've been waiting patiently until the very end, sat with, I think, the most intricate background of anyone who's been on this episode, on this show so far. You've got some of the quantum physics, you've got some of the maths going on behind you. You're here to talk about Boba, right?
Yeah, very antithetical to all the maths behind me. The project I'm talking about is called Boba. It's I think, Anthony, you were mentioning it quite a few times, and also Lev as well. So you were mentioning this thing called layer 1, right? And what I'm talking about, Boba, is a layer 2 scaling solution. So when we talk about layer 1s, we talk about basic blockchains and stuff. So we're talking about Ethereum, we're talking about Bitcoin, we're talking about Cardano, we're talking about Solana, right? And then when we talk about layer 2, it's essentially just something built on top of that. And as Abhishek was mentioning from the very start, right? With the problem with Ethereum that all of us suffer through is how slow it is and how much the gas fees are. And so this is where layer 2 come into play. So if you think about the theoretical limit of the transactions on Ethereum, it's 16 to 15 transactions per second. And if you talk about Bitcoin, which I'm sure all of us can talk a lot of smack about, that's 8 transactions per second. And when you compare that to traditional finance, if you talk a Visa or MasterCard, we're dealing with 300,000 transactions per second, or 200,000 transactions per second. So there's a big divide there, right? And this is where layer 2 platforms like Boba come into play. So what they do is they club a bunch of transactions together so that you can process them all at once. And it is, in the end, verified by the blockchain itself. But because you club it together and you do some fancy math there, it is almost, I think Boba specifically sees about 1000x improvement. So it'll be like 1,000 transactions per second. And not only that, the gas fees is insanely lower now, right? So that's where it comes into play. And this, I think, would define the future of cryptocurrency and crypto systems in general, because now as we're sort of seeing this concept where things are scaling up, right? And we want to reach the traditional finance level so that there is no other excuse other than to use cryptocurrency because it's better, right? And for that, we need to scale it all the way up there. So when it comes to layer 2 platforms, we have a bunch of them. So there's Optimism, there's Arbitrum, and these are the optimistic platforms. And then, then there's Boba, right? And the way Boba works, the name was obviously inspired by like the recent food/drink craze that is associated with crypto. It's like the only fun-loving, I guess, layer 2 platform solution. And so I've been working with them so far, and the real appeal to me here is that when you talk about other layer 2 scaling solutions, they have this weird wait period. So if you talk about like Optimism, right, you have to wait 7 days before you get stuff off from layer 2 to layer 1. And with Boba, you now have fast exits. So you can do that almost instantly because of the liquidity pools on both the layers, layer 1 and layer 2. And it's the only layer 2 platform with its own token that can be used for governance as well. So the token's called Boba. If you've heard of like the Omisego project, the OMG project, Boba was basically just born out of like a team based of that now that's completely changed. So anyone taking OMG right now will receive equivalent amount of Boba once the tokens launch. And yeah, so like about last month or so when we had like the mainnet conference in New York, and which every token went down. And again, no investment advice. I would even ever nowhere go close to that. But when every token was down, OMG was the only one going up because Boba had formally launched. So that's a lot of fun. And I think the way I see it, it's just defining the future. We have NFTs being a big thing now, right? And the way on layer 2 platforms like Boba is that NFTs are cheaper to mint, they're cheaper to access and send back and forth. So all of these things are now possible. And the way I got introduced to this project is I'm a junior studying computer science at Carnegie Mellon. And I just contacted like the professor who was running this. This was run by Stanford professors. And like at Carnegie Mellon, I think everyone on this call would agree, we kind of had a belief that Stanford didn't exist until we went there. And I'm still not sure if it exists, but the professor that I met there definitely does exist. So it's really, there's a lot of academic backing, and that's why I'm really attracted to the project.
Nice, love that. The fun-loving layer 2 that's founded by professors. I mean, this is the sort of stuff that you get in the blockchain scene that is exactly the reason why I love doing these shows, is because they surface the stories, the people, the interest, the nonsense sometimes. But these are the sorts of reasons why we get into this scene, why we delve into it. So Mehul, thank you so much for the introduction. I'm definitely going to go check that out, as with a lot of the other things that have come up on the show today. Guys, anyone out there listening, do not sleep on blockchain in Pittsburgh. It's not just known for ice hockey and steel. There's a lot of smart, bright people coming out of the scene. Shout out to Professor Seth. Shout also to Ishgun and Aurora for bringing us together as well. And guys, good luck with your continued studies. Good luck with your continued projects. And thanks again for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you, Anthony.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.